In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Pilot's Iroshizuku Tsuki-Yo fountain pen ink. I'll go over the specs, and I'll do a ink test, and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about this ink coming up. Blake here with Blake's Broadcast. On this channel, I review fountain pens, paper, and ink, and as always, I put links in the show notes in the description below. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps out my channel. Alright, let's get on with the review. If you've been watching this channel, you will know that I haven't done any ink reviews until now. The intro to my videos says fountain pen, stationery, and ink reviews, but there have been no ink reviews. And the reason for that is I personally find ink to be hard to quantify in a objective way. There's a lot of variables. I think it's pretty difficult to test in a consistent, like, scientific way. And I'm not saying that my fountain pen reviews or paper reviews are scientific in any way. They're not. Ink just feels harder to pin down. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback. I want to make this as useful as possible. You know, I'm probably not going to be able to accommodate every request because there are a million different ways to test and play with ink, but I do really want to hear your feedback. And I'm starting with this Tsuki-Yo ink because this is an ink that I am very familiar with, and I will be doing reviews of the entire Iroshizuku line, the standard line. There are a lot of inks there that I haven't personally used, and I'm really looking forward to testing those because Iroshizuku is probably my favorite ink line, at least in terms of ink lines that have a lot of different colors. Anyway, let's get on to the review. So this is Iroshizuku Tsuki-Yo fountain pen ink, and this is one of my very favorite blue-black inks with a line like Iroshizuku where there are, I think, 24 standard inks, something like that. You know, this isn't necessarily the most exciting one, but I find that I'm using this one a lot. It has a really, really good flow. It's just very easy to deal with. It's easy to clean out of pens. It also dries relatively quickly. You also get nice shading. Now this is Cosmo Airlight 83 GSM. Is that right? Yeah, 83 GSM here. And you can see it with a Lamy Accent fine nib, a 14 karat gold one, and then a Lamy Vista 1.9 millimeter stub. And it just looks, I think, really nice. The color itself is, you know, maybe a little on the plain side, but you do get very apparent shading, and there's a touch of sheen, but you kind of have to look for it. Now, onto some other papers. This is Rhodia 80 GSM, and on here you really get there's zero sheen from this ink. It looks a lot more flat, but you do see the nice shading is still present on both the fine and the medium. And then if we go to Mitsubishi Bank paper, you do get a touch of sheen here. Still, you kind of have to look for it, and it's more apparent on the fine nib here, where there's just more concentration of the ink in a smaller area. So I'm gonna grab some ink from here. I'll put it in this Ink Meister. I call it Ink Meister. Ink Miser is what it is. And we'll start with Kakimori steel nib. Steel metal nib. And I really didn't dry that off. Steel. Steel is 2 E's and 1 L. Oh my god. My brain, I think it's too early in the morning for me. Doing. Yeah. Then we'll go to the pen nib, and this is a Kakimori aluminum pen holder. I really love the look of this. You know, it's not that cheap, unfortunately, but I really like this metal nib holder. It is heavier though. really smooth ink. If you have a pen that is drier writing or maybe isn't flowing perfectly, it's almost my go-to for that. Now I know there are inks that are specifically made for that. Noodler's Eel line. I haven't used one of those inks in a long time. Tsuki-Yo I think works really, really well for that purpose. And honestly, my feeling is if your pen isn't writing well with Tsuki-Yo, it's still dry, you probably need to have some kind of adjustment, or at least that's what I would be doing if Tsuki-Yo wasn't doing it for the pen. Just because this is a really nice lubricated ink. So you might be able to see there's just a touch of red sheen. Pretty hard to see. Maybe it's more apparent this is a ink swab I did here. I guess if we wanted to see how water soluble this is, we could take a quick look here. And if I just drip water on it, that's one way to do it. Now this isn't something that I normally ever do, but I know people, I don't know, is this important to people? Let me put it this way, as somebody that uses fountain pen ink every single day, and have been using it for 20 years or something, if you are really concerned about ink being permanent, people aren't gonna like this, but don't use a fountain pen. Use something that's document proof. The thing with permanent inks, and I'm not against them, and I do own some and use some, but I'm not signing checks, I'm not signing documents with permanent ink. It's just not going to be as good as a ballpoint or a document proof rollerball that's specifically formulated for that purpose. Having the water-based fountain pen ink is never going to be as solid if you're worried about the ink kind of disappearing. So I don't recommend it for that. But in practical terms, what really bothers me is when I'm touching ink and then it's showing up on my finger or my hands, and then I'm somehow transferring it to other places. That drives me nuts. And in the case of Tsuki-Yo, I don't see that. And I mean, this is, this is Cosmo Air Light. This is a coated paper. This is one that, you want to wait for it to dry. But there are other inks out there where you'll touch it and maybe it's been 5 minutes and the ink is coming up off the paper onto your hands because you have, oil on your hands. This one, you're not really going to have that problem with. That's something that really bothers me with ink, and this isn't an issue here. So I can't say, is this good water soluble? Does the ink go away when you put water on it? I don't know. I can kind of still see it. Anyway, okay. Let's wrap this thing up here. So this is my first ink review, and as you can see, it's kind of a bit of a pig's breakfast here, so I'm sorry about that. We'll make it better. But let's just kind of summarize Tsuki-Yo here. So it's a really nice blue-black ink, good shading, pretty minimal sheen, I would say. There is some red sheen there. It's just a very practical ink. Again, like, it dries pretty quickly and it's not coming up off the paper, so that is really good. It's a lubricating ink, so for dry pens this is kind of a go-to ink for me, and it's easy to clean. I really like it. You get a really nice bottle. I really love the Iroshizuku line. It's great. And these are, I think, $24, and for Blake's Broadcast viewers and subscribers, you do get 10% off with code BB10 at checkout at thepapermind.com.